Shalom.
Hey,
Nice to see you again.
it's nice to see you as well.
On camera.
On
I've
camera.
seen you
Yes.
a few times.
Weekly, at least weekly, if not more, thank God.
Well, we're back. I have
We
to
are.
tell the people, though, you called me a while ago and said that you had a come to Jesus moment. I don't want to
Yeah.
mischaracterize that.
Well, I think that it just comes from like my love for Christians and the spread of the word being more common through Christianity than through Judaism. I definitely don't worship Christ. Um, I don't have a panic attack when I hear that people worship Christ, and that's ultimately the problem. Like Jews and other people have a panic attack when people worship Christ, when ultimately they are preaching the word better and to more people closer to the word of the Torah than even the Jews are capable of. So that's kind of like my summary point of view on why it is that I've opened myself so much to Christianity, because as a Jew, we're told to be the priest amongst the nations. We're supposed to teach the law. And ultimately, I see Christ as probably the greatest teacher since Moses. Like Moses wrote down the law and gave it to the Jews, but then Christ spread the word to everybody else outside of the Jews. And that's been major for mankind, seriously major.
Okay. But I imagine you're not going to go get baptized tomorrow or enter the Catholic Church or anything like that.
Well, I would have no problem entering the Catholic Church or even getting baptized, because the same way that, like, I don't think it's a sin to dip into the mikvah if you're a Christian, I don't think it's a sin to dip into to get baptized in a church.
Do you think it's a requirement, though? Is that something like you're planning on doing because you have an appreciation for Jesus?
No, it's not something I'm planning on doing, but I wouldn't stop myself from doing it if it were necessary. Like, think about it from the Orthodox standpoint, right? If you want to be Orthodox and you want to be a part of the community, you need to dump into the mikvah, right? So they have that same standard, even though that's not a Torah requirement. The Christians do the same thing. That's their requirement, and that's actually confirmed by the Gospels. So something you need to do. But that's actually where I have a hard time with Christianity, which is the narrative of Christ, the story of Christ, is really powerful, and there's a lot of takeaways. I personally can relate to it as a Jew, as a human being, and it's extremely powerful. But the commentary, so the words of Paul and John and Luke and Matthew, start to get tricky for me, because it's kind of the same feelings I have towards rabbinic Judaism and the commentary that they have on the Torah, taking away from the Torah and adding and subtracting. I think the Christians do the same thing.
So what does Jesus mean to you without taking the Gospels as scripture? Because, and again, even when it comes to rabbinic Judaism and having to dunk in the mikvah, like I imagine you would have a negative reaction to rabbis telling you that you're required to dunk in a mikvah in order to become a Jew.
No, at this point, I really don't have a negative reaction towards both. I actually see both of them as organized religion.
Yet you
Which
don't want to
means-
be part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, why not?
It hasn't served me. I've been a part of it for years. It just hasn't served me, and my relationship with God is very strong, and it's blessed my life. And I simply want to be an example to others that if you follow God and follow his decrees and his ordinances, then you will surely be blessed, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And even if you look at the story of Christ, that's a tough one, because he has a horrible and terrible death. But he seems to know that this was his destiny, right? And whatever God's plan is for you, as long as you're fulfilling that to its highest, that's a blessed life, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and the idea is that going through that, he was still resurrected. So it's like, even if you die, there's still hope. That's kind of the message there. But what does it mean to have an appreciation for Jesus without believing in Christianity as a religion?
What's interesting is, like, I believe in Christianity as a religion more than I believe in Judaism as a religion, because the way that Judaism is now is not, it's not biblical. You know, like, you have literally the new state of Israel, Zionism being the forefront movement, and you have 2,000 years of, in my opinion, malpractice, right? like confirmed malpractice, because there's obviously been malpractice during the 1500 years in which the Jews reigned in Israel, but they at least had the confirmation of the land, which is that despite our sins and our malpractices, God is ultimately fulfilling his promise, because we're mostly on the side of fulfilling his decrees and his ordinances. Then you look at the past 2,000 years where there's a complete wiping out of us having the land at all up until the last like 75 years. And that is actually a claim that God wants us to have it. Right, which is why I have some defense for Israel and what's going on there. Like, how else are you supposed to justify that these people got the land after 2,000 years, other than the fact that God wants them to have it?
Yeah, of course. Well, something you told me when you went to Israel and you went to the tomb of Jesus where he was buried, and you felt the aura and the energy there, and the prayer you uttered was, "I don't believe you're God, but I believe you're chosen, blessed
Well,
by God."
I know that you're a beloved of God, and for that I'm grateful. And that's actually my approach, right? Like, it's absolutely confirmed that Jesus, whether he's real or fictional, is a beloved of God, right? And in Judaism, for some reason, it's like saying Voldemort in Harry Potter, right? It's like, don't say his name, right? But it's like, isn't that giving it power, right? Like, what do you mean? He's just Voldemort, right? But he's not even an evil person. He's literally the beloved of God. So why would you even take that approach, right? This just comes through indoctrination off of religion, which is like anybody who has anything to say against you is shut down immediately and pushed on. They do that both in Christianity and in Judaism. There's an interesting point that like kind of overarches my point of view towards religion and both Judaism and Christianity in separation to other religions. Right now in the US, we have a major issue with birth rates, right? And with us killing babies with abortion, like beyond any sort of number that we can possibly comprehend. And when you start looking at the standard for childbirth, so that you don't have to have immigrants come in and fill the country, it's 2.1 per child, per mother. And right now we're at like 1.7, which is under that. This is why we have immigrants coming in, just to sustain the country. And when you look at religious groups, and that means the religious, Orthodox Jews, and Mormons, the Orthodox Jews absolutely crushing it, between like 3 and 7 children, like per household, per woman, and or mother, more accurately. And the Christians and the religious doing between like 2.3 and 2.7, which is again healthy, growing society. And then you look at the agnostic and the non-practicing and the atheistic being between 1.2 and 1.7, which is below the natural rate of growth for a country. Which, and in Japan, which is the worst, is at 0.7. It's not even one child per household. It's less than that. And they have like 600,000 deaths a year, and they birth like 200,000 in. So like they're literally killing themselves off. This is what's happening in Italy. This is what's happening in Japan and in China and in all sorts of places where the mortality, the birth rate is extremely low. And the overall point is that the Torah, which is the foundational piece of literature for Judaism and for Christianity, the main point is choose life, not death. And when you remove those things from the ethos, you're looking at this culture that's literally trying to kill themselves off. And it's not even casual at all. In the US, we have 1 million abortions a year, at a peak of 1.6 million during 1990. So you're looking at 36 plus million deaths from abortion. And then you're looking at the fact that people don't want to get together, they don't want to have children, women are in the workforce, and so there's just a change in age, in culture, in timing, and you're looking at a huge drop in birth rate as well. So the combination of the automatic killing of people from abortions, plus the fact that people don't want to have children anymore, we've basically cut the birth rate in half, because we've been sustaining between 2 and 3 million births a year since the early 1900s, and we're a much, much bigger economy now, and we're still at around 2-3 million, when the baby boomers were around 4 to 5 million a year. So I'm just giving you some numbers, and I want the viewers to hear that as well, that ultimately I view Christianity and Judaism as the forerunners for life and for blessing and sustainability for people. And I see all other forms of thought as an acceptance of death, as a celebration of death, and ultimately the destruction of people.
Yeah, I mean, for all the negative things we could say about Orthodox Jews, they have been maintaining big families, which is very good. Although I'm pretty sure that like birth control is becoming more common in Orthodox communities.
It totally is. But that's our problem. You see, I've had a lot of anger towards Orthodoxy, clearly, and that's because I was born Orthodox. But now that I've taken steps away and I view the world for what it is, you just see the corruption in all institutions. So my worldview at the time was Orthodoxy bubble, right? And so, of course, my heart is, I'm going to go try and fix Orthodoxy. Or Judaism, if you wanted to go even broader. But then you start to realize that, like, wow, we're even worse outside of that, right? That I actually have a love and appreciation for Judaism, even in all the ways that it's practiced, because things are really, really bad out there, and I see both Judaism and Christianity as the forerunners for truth and for life and for God, really the same God. That's why I don't have a problem with Christ being an extension of Yahweh. Right, as in, if you wanted to go as far that Christ was God in the flesh, right, then even by a Christian standpoint that he's literally God, what about God outside of the flesh? Like, what's his name? Because he has a name. It's Yahweh. It's been proved that way, right? And so, I mean, it's in the same literature that presents to you Jesus.
Yeah, and I think it's abundantly clear from the text that you're not supposed to worship a manifestation of Yahweh, whether it's in a burning bush or in a cloud or in the flesh. You're supposed to worship the unseeable, unknowable Yahweh, who is beyond our comprehension and vision. As it says in Exodus 3:15, my name is Yahweh. This is my remembrance for all time and all generations. Right? And ultimately Yahweh says, you cannot see my face and live, to Moses, right? And do not make any form for me and worship that form, because God is above all that. That's really where I have problems with Christianity defining God as Jesus, because I think that God is beyond just Jesus.
But do you believe, like I do, that we actually need to be convincing people to move towards both Christianity and Judaism as far as a totality of belief, a foundation? Because when you start getting into like the nitty-gritties of people's homes and how strange and bizarre their traumas and upbringings are, it's like we all have some sort of strange twist on it, but we ultimately try the best with the foundation that we have. And I clearly see, and I'm of the opinion that honestly, my opinion is better than thousands of years of rabbinic Judaism, and I'm okay to take that standpoint, but I'm not like competing with anybody. I'm not a part of their circle, right? And so I stick with that because that serves my life, and I like to share it with others, but ultimately time will tell.
Well, look, I think Judaism and Christianity are definitely above atheism, but the thing is that Judaism and Christianity are so saturated with lies and man-made issues that I think it would be better to bring people back to the Torah, which is the foundation of the entire faith, which actually is flawless and perfect.
Well, that's the overlap, right? And that's the negative part of both Judaism and Christianity. They're guilty on both sides, which is Jews are like, hands on the hips, like, we have the Torah, but like we can't possibly even speak the name of that filthy Christ guy. It's like, why do you need to take that position? He was literally a Jew who fulfilled the Torah of Moses perfectly.
Well, you know why? It's because he went against the rabbis.
But he fulfilled the Torah. You're absolutely right, and that's the Jew's problem. So you go against me, not you go against God, then we're going to ostracize you and literally go for thousands of years shaming and putting down that name. Even if he was a man, that's totally inappropriate. The thing is that when a man is truly righteous, the small, insignificant claims of the Jewish people weigh nothing in comparison to the billions of followers that Christ has.
Clearly,
right?
yeah.
It's basically the difference between love and hate, right? Like that you have thousands of generations of love that God gives, and you have 3 generations of sin and hate, right? And that's basically how I see like the Jews speaking out against Jesus. Like, does it really matter that much? Like, you guys have billions of followers. You guys all follow the Torah. And that's the negative side of Christianity, is that when the Christians abolish the old, they don't have any laws. They have no laws at all. It's just believe in Christ. He died for my sins, and I'm going to go to the kingdom of heaven. It's like, you guys do understand, you sound more like a Muslim than you sound like a Christian, right? Like, I follow Allah, 70 virgins, Allah, 70 virgins, right? Like, this is just a selfish practice for you. It's about what can I gain in the afterlife, which, by the way, all 3 of those groups know nothing about.
Yeah, as much as they claim to know about the afterlife, what about the here and now? And on the topic of abortion and that whole discussion, I saw a billboard that said the main cause of death for children is gun violence. And so I do a quick search. How many children die a year from gun violence worldwide? 40,000. Then you see how many children die a year from abortion. Well, almost 80 million. And then you have to take a stop and be like, wait, so absolutely no one is talking about the real issue here, which is that you have a war in which 1,000 people die, and then you have abortion in which 80 million people die. It's literally topping World War II and even the Soviet Union.
Like,
right?
real self-righteous of you, all of you people who don't speak out to get abortion, but you have to like lose your mind off of the baby killers in Israel. Like, even if you want it to be absolutely absurd, which is not the truth, and say that 100,000 Palestinians were killed in Gaza, right? And let's just say that every one of them was babies, that we were like, the Jewish people were, I don't know, like cannibalistic baby hunters, okay? That's 100,000, okay? And we have 79 million a year aborted. Even in the US, it's 1 million a year, okay? We have 3 million born every year, so we're killing off 1/3 to 1/4 of our population. Then, because of cultural issues, women entering the workforce, the economy growing, women not wanting to be wives and mothers, men supporting that worldview so that they have pussies instead of penises. And, this is the world that we live in. We have feminine men and we have masculine women. We have people not looking at the very obvious stats of human sacrifice. Abortion is just human sacrifice. And we're looking at a collapse of a society, if we're being realistic. I mean, you study history over the course of the latest antiquity that we have, which is, by the way, the Bible. And you see human sacrifice, sexual liberation, and angry and lonely young men. Those 3 things destroy a society. And we have the angriest and lonely, porn-addicted, indoctrinated, video game playing, college student loser men mixed with over, I believe it's 75% of women are in the 70% of women are in the workforce. Yeah, so you have like women stepping up and prioritizing work. They're killing off their babies. Everybody, by the way, they worship Satan. Like it's actually common practice. Like I'm on the dating apps on Tinder, Hinge, and all you see is there's actually a funny one. Because I just screenshotted it the other day, but there's like so many I don't even spend the time to do it. But this one is kind of funny because I actually hear this dialogue from women when I go out on dates. Let's see. Anxiety, ADHD, queen of the Latinas, family wizard. You'll probably end up blocking me, and I'll have to curse your bloodline. Okay. It's not funny when like every single girl says the same thing. And they actually tell you that they practice witchcraft, not Judaism, not Chabad, not Haredi, whatever. They say, I practice witchcraft and I do spells, but look, I don't do human sacrifice. And then you're like, okay, I'm just going to pretend like I didn't actually hear that out loud, but did you have an abortion? I've actually said that to a woman who had that exact claim. And she said, yes. And I said, well, sounds like you're doing that too, right? And That's just how I see it. It's extremely disgraceful, and we need to be worried about what's going on in our home, not what's going on outside of the world. Because if you were to compile the deaths in Ukraine, the deaths in Israel, even the deaths in Somalia, the deaths in Japan, through all the wars that are kind of like, spreading out.
In Iran.
You don't even have, in Iran, you don't even have a tenth of the amount of deaths that are happening per year of abortions just in the US alone, right? If you wanted to go worldwide, it took 10 plus years, 12 years of like the pre-war deaths, and then all the way to the stop of World War II. It's like basically 12 years of chaos, even though it's technically only 5 years. We had 100,000 Americans die per year. So 488,000 Americans died over the course of 5 years of World War II. And you wanted to go globally on both sides, both the Germans, the American, the Europeans, everybody who was involved in the world, you're looking at 80 million. We abort 80 million children a year. And people are of this opinion that like, it's not a problem, that's not the real issue, there's other issues. Like, no, why don't we say that that is definitely an issue? There's definitely no shortage of issues that we need to pay attention to, but that's a certainty.
Well, I feel like it's so significant because it's the destruction of our own hand. That's something that's fully within our control, right? The wars, the global chaos, like what can we do other than listen to the news and stress out? But this is something that we are doing to ourselves, and the worst damage is what we're doing to ourselves. I think that's really the main message here. And again, like, what is the argument? Oh, it's not a life? Like, again, I have a son who's, God willing, going to be born soon. On the first month of his development and the 9th month of his development, that's the same human being. If we killed him in the first month, that baby who's going to be born would be dead. Like, what a fucking retarded thing to say. Like, oh, it's not a life, it's just a clump of cells. I remember I was doing research for this for a paper once, because I was like literally in college, I was like writing an essay about how fucked up abortion is. And I watched this video on YouTube, and this woman's like, and so I had a little bean in me, and I went to get the bean removed. And she just kept referring to her child as a bean.
Don't they call the clit a bean too?
Exactly.
I'm saying, what if we just remove your clit? Will it be that casual? Yeah. I don't think so, right? I don't fucking think so.
My body.
I'm saying, like, they want to minimize it to these things, like, well, just because it's a bean, it's not a life. Like I said, there's these parallels of beans and all sorts of things. Like, I'm sick and tired of this culture. I hope people hear just how sick and tired I am. I want to empower people to be sick and tired of it. Say, I don't want this anymore. Ultimately, the best solution that I have to it is to just say that we need to remove women's right to vote, because, yeah, you can't like stop women from entering the workforce, but that has nothing to do with the Constitution. We actually entered the Constitution to give the woman the rights to vote. We have the worst economy ever. What did women offer, by the way, to the economy? As soon as women got the right to vote, this is the 19th Amendment, right? You have an increase in the medical system, childcare, and education. All three of which, by the way, are in the shitter, okay? The Child Protective Services captures your children and gives them to child predators, and they steal all your time and money going through the courts. The education system indoctrinates your children to confuse their gender, to turn them into transsexuals, to teach them history that never happened, to confuse things on the level of 1984. And the medical system is a complete fuck up. All you have to do is look at the past 4 years or 5 years of everybody's life, the complete sham of COVID, and the amount of deaths that came through that. Again, none of this stuff altogether even comes close to abortions, which is literally the pinnacle of women's rights and their liberation. So if people had any thoughts that women are good for the economy on this level of decision making, they're absolutely delusional. You could go even deeper, as in, what was the first thing that women did when they got into politics? They abolished alcohol. You're looking at the years of 1920 to 1935, or is it 33? It's one of those two. 1931 to 1933 was the Great Depression, by the way. So there's an overlap of the worst economy ever. And do you know how the Great Depression came into existence? It's basically a collapse of the society, similar to what we're looking at now. But why would that collapse happen? The government had a huge stream of revenue coming in because of alcohol. So now women, because of all of their trauma of men, thinking that they understand how to chop him at the root, right? Destroy the economy through the government no longer having revenue or less revenue. And then the government needs to spend more money. Why? Because we need to hire policemen, we need to put men in jail, we need to do all these other things in order to enforce that sort of law. The problem is that nobody takes that law serious. And so it increases gang violence. It literally created Al Capone, right? And when you start having a huge influx of people entering the workforce, there aren't going to be enough jobs for everybody. And so when the economy crashes, while there are more people who want to be in the workforce, you look at essentially the Great Depression. And so what ended up happening, 1931 to 33, which were the worst years, the Great Depression ended at the same time we removed the abolition of alcohol. So men, we have the power to remove things from the Constitution and to add things from the Constitution. And if you're looking at depressed men and women, suicidal men and women, crazy amounts of deaths every single year in the name of women's liberations, we have nothing to lose at this point by taking this stance. Unfortunately, I don't think any men have the balls to say this out loud. And so this is to try and empower you, to tell you that it's all right. You're going to be able to take back your home. There's going to be years and years and years of trauma because there's been a sort of devastation you can't possibly understand. Like 80 million over the course of World War II, total death. We do that every year. Like, you want to see trauma? Just wait 5-10 years. But if you keep this up, we're doomed. We're absolutely doomed. So we might as well try and fight for our home. We might as well try and fight for God, for liberty and justice. And it's a crazy thing to have seen, by the way. They're literally rewarding women to do this. If you look at your quarters, I recommend people start looking at your quarters. The economy is so bad, your quarter is basically a penny. So just keep it for fun, okay? On the quarters, basically 2,000 upwards, you have all these women like Wilma Mankiller, this doctor, that doctor, when it's like, how many male doctors existed? I think it's Celia Cruz, the artist. It's like, why is she on the quarter being a low-level artist, all things considered? Yeah, she's great. I like her music too, but she doesn't even compare to Michael Jackson. Why isn't Michael Jackson on the quarter? Why is Wilma Mankiller on the quarter? Why is, like, we don't even put our modern presidents on the quarter, but we put Wilma Mankiller on there. You want to know why? Because Wilma Mankiller is a feminist social worker, right? And so what the society is doing is say, hey, woman, if you choose to not be a wife and a mother, you choose to go full send on being a slut and becoming part of the workforce, we'll put you on the quarter for just being a doctor. Like, how many doctors in the Civil War were there that we need to give accreditation to one female doctor? This is just part of the manipulation to get people to move away from having children, to following God and procreating on the earth and having blessing. And that's ultimately why not only am I super passionate about these things, because I feel that we're headed towards certain destruction, but Christianity and Judaism are the only two front runners for truth, for life, for procreation. And I'm definitely not against those things, even in their weird sects. There's obviously places we need to improve, but if the alternative is Satanism and hedonism and atheism, then just count me out.
Yeah. Well, look, the Satanism of feminism is beyond compare. And the reality is that God gave men the power to give women these rights and to take them away. And women admit that they're going to need an army of feminist men in order to enforce their feminist ideologies, right? But the reality is men need to stop doing this, and men actually just need to take their power that God gave them. Now, on the topic of men being righteous, because that's really what it comes down to. Once men remove this ridiculous power that they gave to women, which is absurd, men remove that. Now, the onus and responsibility is on men to actually enforce God's law. And so you speak of the angry man, you know, the incel, the bitter, porn-addicted man, right? That kind of anger is destructive. I think that's like that's very victim-like, a sad little angry boy, in mama's basement. But I think there's another kind of anger, which is the wrath of God. I believe that men need to feel the wrath of God inside of them. And that's one of the things I like about the story of Jesus, is that although he's so nice to the underprivileged and the poor and the sick, he's very kind to them. When he comes to the people in power, the corrupt rabbis, the corrupt priests, the corrupt Romans, and the government, he has nothing but rage for these people, because they're absolute monstrous pieces of shit. And I think all men, in order to awaken to just how badly they've been treated by society and just how terrible things have gone, instead of having a kind of regressive, sad little view of yourself, be filled with the wrath of God, because God is angry at this stuff. God hates these abominations, and you should feel that. Because that's going to, like I was telling you, we went around LA for years, and we went to clubs and we went to bars and we talked to sluts and gays and all these people, right? And we were angry the entire time. We walked around with like our big kippas and our tzitzit, and we were just pissed off at these evil people. They're just such scum, And I think that was helpful. Because I feel like if we weren't angry, we probably would have just been okay with all of it.
No, totally. I mean, people have kind of lost out because men are put down so much, but like literally the point of your testosterone is so that you can channel your anger and do really, really dangerous and bad things, like ultimately like war and well, maybe not bad, but dangerous and violent things, because like that is the point of your testosterone. Like, oh wait, you mean you're going to come into my land and try and rape our wives and kill our children? Good luck, right? So there's a need for testosterone, there's a need for masculinity, and that's been removed. It's like you hear weird guys like Clavicular giving advice to young men, about like bone smashing and look smaxing and mogging and all this.
Do you know that he
weird
takes
language.
estrogen in order to grow?
Well, the estrogen balance is because if you're taking testosterone, you need to take the appropriate amount of estrogen, or your testosterone is going to plummet.
But look, it's the medical thing. They're normalizing people injecting
he's sticking himself with drugs all day long. He takes meth, dude. He does meth in order to stay.
I'm telling
lean.
you, like they're normalizing injections. Like
you're normalizing meth. I'm saying, who's going to actually take advice from this retard? I think he's retarded.
Oh, of course, he's
totally retarded. And also, I mean, like, honestly, just to empower other men, like you got all these women who are like telling you, hey, I'm going to see you on the battlefield. Like, yeah, you'll fucking see me on the battlefield. Fuck you. Guess what? You're going to lose. You and your gay boyfriend that you live with. Fuck you.
Yeah, the gay army of feminists.
I'm saying, like, all these girls basically have, like, they have no chance. I'm sorry.
Zero chance. It's women and gays. Like, what they're going to win against actual men? It's a zero-sum chance. Like,
well, that's the thing,
ridiculous.
Is there's so few men. I have the genuine belief that good, if it comes together, will always win. It's a superpower. The good that gets together will always win. But the good don't want to come together until things get really bad, because we're smart, we stay to ourselves, we keep to our own. But now with the internet and how things work, like everybody's involved in everybody's business. The economy is terrible. People are depressed. Here in California, we turn people into transsexuals, by the way.
For free.
Major issue. So we already have like an immigration issue in the United States, right? But we're below the birth rate. So we actually need to have immigrants come in order to stabilize the economy, or the same thing's going to happen to like what's happening in Japan or in Italy or in Korea, South Korea being the worst of all of them. They're paying people like $75,000 a year in order to have children.
Also, right? Do you know how they're impregnating these people? They have sperm in a tube and an egg in a freezer, and they fucking make babies in labs. Like women, they're like, I don't want to have a baby from a man. So they go to a fertility clinic and they read, they take a binder and they look at men and like, oh, he looks hot. Oh, how big is his dick? And then they just get themselves inseminated by some.
Does it even matter anymore? He's not even going to put it in.
Exactly. No, but she wants to make sure her son will have a big one.
But that's the thing is that.
Wait. So she gets inseminated by a female doctor, comes into the room, inseminates some woman. Do you realize like we're going to have an incest problem? Because people don't even know who their fathers are.
Oh, we're going to have so many issues. First of all, if everybody goes through that route in order to have children, there's never going to be enough children born, right? Like, that's not how it works. And, I mean, again, all of this stuff is basically just to stroke feminist ego and to stroke the ego of the men who are saying, you know what, I built my whole life around empowering women, and the society has rewarded me for such, and so, like, I'll see you on the battlefield. Like, that's basically all I have left to say,
Yeah.
because that's where we're headed, by the way. It's totally where we're headed. People are not going to want to take this stuff anymore. They can't handle it. Like, you have any compassion for your brothers and your sisters? Like, are we actually normalizing the fact that basically every student that goes to college, every girl, first of all, those are our future wives, those are our daughters, and those are our sisters. I grew up where if you even look at your friend's sister, it's like, hey, bro, keep my sister out of it. Don't even make a joke, bro. Chill, bro. Right? Like, bro, you're gay, bro. Right? Like, stuff like that. Now it's literally like, oh, well, you didn't get to, hang out with my sister even though we were neighbors, or much less even go on a single date. But like, I'll allow my sister to go to college and get tossed around by 15 to 20 to 35 men until she literally gets sick of men. And that's what happens, by the way. You see, there's also like scientific differences between men and women and how sex affects us. In short, men, when they have sex with a woman, they get a dopamine spike and they get a testosterone hit and they move on to the next thing. They're built for that. They have 3 million sperm replenishing every day. The prerogative is to, increase the species. But women, they're created for depth, right? They have multiple eggs, but they have one egg that gets fertilized by the man. When that egg does get fertilized by the man, she releases oxytocin, right? Which is the same release that she gets when she has a child, when she bonds with her child. And so you're telling me that the bonding process isn't being hurt by women sleeping with multiple men, and their ability to love and cherish children, even their own children, doesn't get hurt? It's exactly why women are basically like, well, I've had my fill of men and I've broken both my spirit and my biology. There is no need for men, and I'm just going to spend the rest of my broken life saying that men are the problem. And so all I have to say to those women is, fuck you. I want to procreate. I want to have children. I want to live the sort of life that allows men and women to buy homes, to live together, to make that the source of life, to make God the foundation of the home. And that if that's not your belief, we're ultimately looking at a split in the country like the North and the South. Unfortunately, we don't even have enough people standing up for slavery in that regard if I wanted to consider myself the North and all you feminist faggots the South.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly what's going on, and there's no question about that. What are we dealing with? We're dealing with the collapse of everything. Again, yes, women have a limited amount of eggs. They have a limited amount of years of fertility. The biology is very, very different. The spirituality is very, very different. And the Torah teaches us that very well, marks the differences between men and women, and calls men to be righteous and moral, because righteous and moral men are women's protection. And instead of honoring that, and instead of women nurturing men's righteousness, there has been a war that's created between men and women. And what kind of species is at war with itself and is killing its own offspring?
Oh, only human beings, apparently. Right? I love the phrase, a mouse won't create a mousetrap, but people will make an atomic bomb.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is a common theme in humanity, right? And I was thinking about this the other day, where it's like, we're always in this, we worked really hard for a period of peace. Now the period of peace has made us relaxed. I kind of wanted to tie it back into Christianity and Judaism, because all these frustrations of the world come from the lack of a foundation that we have as people. Like I said, it's still prevalent in the numbers that those who follow God continue to have children, and they have better outcomes than those who do not. And it's a major, major issue to not have children, to prioritize the workforce, to prioritize the self. It's extremely, extremely selfish. All of our grandparents, and most of us are immigrants to somewhere or another, were people who left their communist countries at threat of death in order to gain the opportunity that America has. America is no longer the land of opportunity. This is Sin City. This is a terrible, terrible place. And unfortunately, it's affected the whole world. I don't want my country to die. I don't want them to die out. I don't want them to be destroyed. It's exactly why I care so much. The foundation of America is biblical. The foundation of Christians is biblical. Foundation of Jews is biblical. We all share the Torah. That's where all the laws come from. So to strengthen the religious, telling everybody to come back to the 5 books of Moses, to read their literature. If you wanted to look at it from the standpoint of like America, the freedom to choose your own religion, right, and to have freedom of speech, that's fine, right? Like, but this stuff has taken course on a political level where all the institutions are bent on making money and destroying the economy and hurting men and women. Like, the government is here to serve us. The moment that the government started to, I mean, again, the more we give to the government, the more we're reliant on them. So we need to take the power back as the people. And if we want to save our country, it comes from the people changing their beliefs. That seems close to impossible for transsexuals, homosexuals, feminists, and
atheists.
Then atheists might change, but yeah, atheists, you can throw them in there. But really,
Satanists.
the Satanists, right? And so then it's like God-believing people, right? There was the North and the South, and the North were people who believed in God, in the Constitution, giving people equal rights, and that all people are created equal under the eyes of God. And then there was the South, who disregarded the Constitution, probably would be willing to add and take away in order to sustain themselves. And the South were the opposition to the president and America, because the political position at the time, which was Abraham Lincoln, was we're going to need to take over our own land because it's ultimately been taken over by slave owners. They're so rich and powerful, they do whatever they want. That is very, very representative of what's happening now. All these extremely rich people, the rich elites, just like the South, we have the same thing going on now. We have these super wealthy people controlling the narrative of the society, controlling the government, allowing the government to create the narratives for us. We believe as people that we need to satisfy the government's needs in order to survive, as opposed to the government needs to satisfy our needs in order to grow as an economy and be the number one. And so we look like we're on the way out. The people need to come together with their beliefs. I don't think most people are happy about the fact that their future wives, their sisters and their daughters getting tossed around in college. I don't really think people are happy about the fact that their daughters and sons are mentally ill. I don't think people are happy about the decline in birth rate in marriage. Everybody's got a damn therapist and nobody can buy a home, you know? So like, as human beings in a biblical country that's had hundreds of years of biblical influence, I recommend to stop being so arrogant, to start referencing your own morality instead of God.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, we got to return to God. And I just don't know why people are so defeatist and fatalist about the outcomes here. It's like, who is the government? The government are a bunch of corrupt people, right? Who's fighting their wars? People. Who's building their streets and everything? It's all people, right? This is not some like Illuminati shit. Like, who the fuck's the Illuminati? Some old guy in his room? Like, go wring his neck. He's some old fart. He's a piece of shit. Like, why are we threatened by a bunch of weird, shadowy, invisible figures who claim to have dominion over us when they're literally just powerless human beings, the same way you and I are powerless, right? They need an army fighting for them. Well, if we have an army of righteous men who are strong and masculine and have godly values and are fighting for what's right, God promises that He's on the side of the good. God gives miraculous victories in history to armies that are fighting in His name. God is the God of legions, right? Of armies, and we should be absolutely returning to the good and strengthening ourselves as men and women to willingly choose our roles. Women struggle with being masculine to the wrong degree, and men struggle with being feminine to the wrong degree. Even go back to Adam and Eve. Eve is trying to be strong, independent woman, going against God, going against her husband with some snake. Adam's being a little weak bitch, doing whatever she tells him to do.
Listening to his wife.
Listening to his wife instead of listening to God. So we can see what our weaknesses are. So women have to willingly choose to submit to their femininity and to their husbands, and men have to willingly choose to enforce God's law even in the face of betrayal and difficulty. And that's the bottom line, is that's what makes us strong people, is doing what's right no matter what.
Well, the same way that the people on the North during the Civil War fought for their own rights, the right to liberate other people, we need to do the same thing. And actually right now, I believe that the leading cause of death and destruction and unhappiness in the world is actually the feminist movement, not the war in Gaza, not the war in Ukraine. It's totally the feminist movement. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is is godless, and he's like trying to liberate the woman of Iran to become like the United States sluts. Like, sorry, don't think that's going to work out very well, because that might be one of the only positive things that they have going on in Iran. And we don't really want to have gay roommates, and we don't really want to have non-virgin girls, you know, like that's a good thing for both women and men, right? And yeah, hopefully this gives some sort of consolation to people who have faggy sons and feministy daughters.
Yeah, put them in their place.
Put them in their place. Like, what are you going to keep letting them hurt themselves like that? Just call it enough.
Yes. Enough is enough.
Enough is enough. God bless you.
God bless. Thanks, everyone.